Hey now, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Hello, 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 hello. Welcome to our number 3 of the Line Talk 99.5. Andrew Mclain, John Bird, and your favorites right here on the radio. At least your favorites in the middle of the day. I believe that would be us, would it not? Is that us?
I believe you are correct, sir.
If you want to get in, 205-545-9950. Real quick, Joe Biden was left confused during his Maryland Democrat Party gala speech. He was at the Democrat Party gala in Maryland. Gala. Is that how you pronounce it? Gala? Gala. Gala, gala.
Yeah, gala.
Gala make you holla. And so for some reason, they thought to themselves, man, it'd be great to have Joe Biden come up here and speak to the people. Well, in the middle of his speech, protesters stood up and started chanting "Genocide Joe" and yelling at him, leaving Biden confused
Oh, man.
and not knowing where he's at and losing his place. He described the history of the Democratic Party and the story of America as a constant push and pull between peril and possibility, as one woman screamed, "Genocide Joe," sparking chaos in the room. Loud boos could also be heard as screaming continued. It's unclear how many were involved in the protest and whether the crowd was booing at Biden or the protesters. Biden looked shocked and confused as he tried to continue his speech. After the interruption, Biden attempted to recover, slurring through gibberish and ultimately declaring that the Democrats are going to come out stronger and win in November. How about that? That's encouraging. He said, "I know the Democrat Party. I fought for my whole life. I'm still fighting for it now. That's why I'm here tonight to support Maryland Democrats. That's why I travel to South Dakota, South Carolina, Nebraska, Pennsylvania, fighting for Democrats up and down the ballot and all over this country, just like I've done my whole life. I know the story of the Democratic Party. I've seen it in times of triumph and trouble." This is obviously from his teleprompter and not from his mouth that I'm reading, because you wouldn't understand the gibberish. "Because I've lived it. I also know the story of America." That's right. Joe Biden is almost as old as America. "Like many of you, it's a constant push and pull between peril and possibility. It's a battle." And at that point, they started screaming, "Genocide Joe." This is pretty good. It's pretty good. Also, Chuck Schumer getting viciously booed at his by his own side at the New York City Pride Parade over the weekend. That's right. The old guard is moving on out, and their own base has turned on them. You know, if they would have listened to level-headed people throughout the past few years and not pandered to such small sections of their base, they wouldn't be in this position. They could have simply gone to those, because, I mean, hell, you're going to cheat anyway. Like, you don't really need those people. They could have gone to those small sections of the Free Palestine, the trans movement, the whatever it may be, and could have said, "Listen, we're the adults in the room, and we're going to attempt to at least give out the perception that we are somewhere in the middle. We may not be in the middle, but we're going to at least try to make it look like we are." But instead, they pander to these people. And now the people that you pandered to have turned against you and they're running all the old Democrats out of town and ushering in this new lunatic fringe of socialists and psychos to essentially run the party. That's what's happened. And Chuck Schumer, he's like, I've been here since the very first Pride Parade in New York City back in 1991 or whenever it was. And they started booing him. They did. He says, it was 1999. I was the first senator to ever march in this parade. 1999. I haven't missed one since. And they're all like, boo, Chuck Schumer sucks. Which I don't know why they're booing him because, as Donald Trump says, Chuck Schumer is New York's favorite Palestinian senator. He is. He's the OG. Don't know why they're so angry. The boos at Sunday's parade and the state's Democrat primary last week have sent a clear message that not even longtime allies are safe from the far leftist consuming the party. Well, that is correct. I also saw this story about Los Angeles. A Los Angeles man got arrested after shooting naked people with a BB gun as they rode their bikes through downtown L.A. I don't know if this was a.
I love that.
I don't know if this was a pride-related thing or what. It says hundreds of people were spotted riding without clothes for the World Naked Bike Ride. LAPD says a man dressed in all black riding a scooter started shooting the cyclist with a BB gun. 2 people were hit and treated for lacerations. The man was taken into custody. And listen, people that are into like nudist camps or naked bike rides, traditionally, if we're being honest, have leftist ideologies, right? They just do. Maybe it's not all of them, but I would say it's probably 95% to 5%, right? You may have like 5% of conservatives out there they like to be naked. But at this bike ride, it's in LA, so it's probably 100%. But this guy in particular was like, you know what? I don't like this. I'm going to shoot y'all with a BB gun. And he did it, man. He did it.
Shoot him with old Red Ryder.
It's really, it's inappropriate, honestly, because it's just like these pride parades. I saw a clip of this just yesterday. I don't know what city this was in. Could have been in New York or Seattle or something. But they're doing their pride parade, and there's these, 65, 70-year-old men that are walking through the pride parade completely naked.
And it's against the law.
Their wieners like just dangling along. And there's children. There are children at these pride parades watching these naked men. And if you like to get naked where children can see you, then that's a red flag. You could say, oh, no, it's just part of free expression. But if you're getting naked in front of a child, and these people know children are going to be at that parade. It's not like they had no idea and they thought only adults were going to be out there. They knew, and they still did it. I'm talking, that's registry behavior. You need to be put on a list, and there are, as much as I hate to say it, there are I would say there are a number of pedos that are in these parades, especially in these major cities where they're super provocative or they're just straight up naked. That's pedo behavior, okay? And you deserve to be in prison. Bottom line. And it's probably not to defend violence in any way, but It was probably part of the motivation behind this guy with the BB gun who said, "You're out here in Los Angeles in public. Children can see you. Women can see you. And I'm going to hit you with a couple BBs. I'm going to hit you with a BB right in your BBs." Again, don't condone that behavior, but you can almost kind of feel where he's coming from. You know what I'm saying? Don't be weirdos, man. And listen, there's a lot of gay people out there that completely distance themselves from this stuff, from the pride parade, from the LGBTQIA plus scene, that say, "I just want to be gay and be left alone. I don't want to I'm not in this group." And good for them. Because that group, quote unquote, harbors some ill-intentioned people, harbors some real sickos. And they know they do and do nothing about it. They just allow it. It's like they want it. They want it to happen. It's just such a godforsaken group of people. It's disgusting. And every one of them should be thrown in prison and have the key thrown away. We don't put up with pedo behavior around here. 205 545 9950. That's 205 545 9950. More of the line coming up right after this. Here we go. So Pete Buttigieg, let me tell you about this. So originally, John Bird, I saw this on an AL.com article, and it says something like Pete Buttigieg distraught over Child Protective Services swatting that took him away from his children, or something weird like that. And I'm like, And so I looked into it, and it was a very misleading headline. But
of course,
I'm just going to read you. This is not from AL.com, but this kind of gives you a better idea as to what happened. It says, Pete Buttigieg's, and this is the story that he told, which is where the article picked it up. Pete Buttigieg's harrowing swatting story, which was from last week, is now coming under scrutiny, suggesting he may not be telling the entire truth. Buttigieg claims that he was swatted by Child Protective Services service agents and separated from his 4-year-old twins. He put it into, after it happened, he ran to Substack to write a column about the incident, describing himself as a bewildered and troubled. He said that the CPS worker told me something that made my stomach turn. I was not to be alone around the children, at least until the interview took place the next day. So you weren't allowed to be around the children by yourself. Okay, so, but I thought you were separated from them. That doesn't sound like separating you, but hey, what do I know? After a, quote, sleepless night, he says, the officers told him that an anonymous tipster told police that he had spoken to a woman. She said that Buttigieg had committed unspeakable violent crimes, and the caller believed my children, he says, were still at risk. He says, quote, after the officer spoke, the CPS worker likewise indicated she had not found anything to substantiate the allegation, though her process would take a bit longer to be formally completed. I no longer needed to avoid being around my children unsupervised. Chasten was invited to come back downstairs and hear the same information that had just been shared with me. Then, per standard procedure, she verified that there was adequate food in our kitchen and asked to take a look at the kids' bedroom. Okay. But questions are emerging that suggest Buttigieg might be embellishing at least part of his story, particularly the part about CPS separating him from his children, because there was one ex-user, and this is just a random thing on the internet, so take it for what it's worth. He said he has dealt with cases like Buttigieg's and said he was lying. He says, Buttigieg is lying. I deal with these kinds of cases all the time. CPS does not separate you from your kids over an anonymous, unsubstantiated accusation. Thought I wasn't going to be able to get that out, didn't you? Something serious was reported, and there was corroboration for it to have gotten this far. Don't let him pretend at being the victim here. Something serious is happening, and he's trying to frame it as politics, according to that person.
Now, is he married?
Yeah, he's married
so he is still married.
Chasten.
Oh, okay, Chasten.
Yeah.
That's a strange name.
Andrew Closter, who's a former Trump administration lawyer, he said that Buttigieg had acted weird around his kids when he and Chasten were his next-door neighbors. He also speculated that Buttigieg planted the story to gin up sympathy.
Wait, now acting weird in what way?
He doesn't say. He said Buttigieg was weird around my kids when he and Chasten were our next-door neighbors, but whatever. He said odds he hired someone to plant a false report to gin up sympathy and a campaign trail story are fairly high, because he's probably going to try to run for president. So he can say, the MAGA Republicans are trying to take me away from my children. There's another guy named Kurt Schleichter.
Schleifster, I bet.
He's a California lawyer and a prominent conservative writer. He noted that Americans still have no clue what the specific allegations on the CPS call were. That's a good point because it's like, wait a minute. What were the allegations and why in this case opposed to all other cases? And I don't know. I mean, there's probably people in our audience that have, CPS stories of their own, but this seemed to be a very unsubstantiated accusation that they had no proof of, even when they showed up, but they still allegedly separated Pete Buttigieg from his twins, his adopted twins.
That's strange.
A poster who said he had been in and out of the foster care system noted how unusual the alleged actions from CPS were based on the law, again calling Buttigieg's claims into question. He said he claimed CPS made it so he couldn't see his kids until they were questioned the next day based on a single report. He called it bullish. He said, I was in and out of that system, and I've seen so many direct experiences with them. It's insane. That is considered extreme action, rarely happens, and usually a court order. Yeah, I'm not buying your dramatic story or your need to be the victim, so you have a good story when you run for president again. He needs attention, and he's using his kids to do it.
God.
Oh, here's another one. Pete Buttigieg is lying, first of all, calling what happened to you like being swatted is insane. Yeah, that was another thing. He said he was swatted. CPS interviewing your kids isn't the same as people who've been murdered. She's probably trying to not say murdered. And their families traumatized because SWAT tore down every door, some multiple times. No outrage when countless political influencers on the right were being swatted multiple times. She's like, but that's not my point. Oh, so he's another important thing to note is he's in Michigan. So I'm looking at a flyer from Michigan CPS as far as how their process goes, and it completely contradicts Buttigieg's story. Okay, here's one of the takes that we got. Several people text us about the CPS stuff because I figured there were some people in the audience that have been through this, either as children or maybe even parents. This one says, "My brothers and I dealt with child services. They did a home visit once. My parents didn't know they were coming. They didn't separate us then. They separated us when they left me and my two younger brothers alone at a motel for 2 weeks with no food. They were arrested for crack cocaine. We were separated for 1 year." He said, "My point being, it has to be something more serious than a surprise visit. He's full of ish, goals." Yeah, I think he is too. I think it's, you hate to make everything about politics, but you can't trust these people as far as you can throw them, especially somebody like Pete Buttigieg. Like, he's always looking for attention. Why would, if he's not looking for attention, why would he post pictures of himself with the fake breastfeeding his adopted children? You know, that screams I'm looking for attention. It can't just be normal. I gotta get that attention, cuz I gotta get that attention, which is what liberals do, man. It's the narcissism. It's the narcissism that comes with the territory. It's why they have to be so outlandish and outspoken and so loud and so unique. They call themselves unique. You know, they just, yeah, I'm unique. I'm what do they call it? I'm pansexual. I'm not attracted to a gender. I'm attracted to a person.
That's just.
Like, what is that?
And did they get it from Peter Pan?
Yeah.
You know, because he doesn't look really like a boy or a girl.
I don't know. Maybe they're into Peter Pan. Maybe they're into Peter Pan peanut butter. Who knows?
They could be spread it all over. Wow, yeah,
Spread it on their crotchal area and let the dog lick it off.
Oh, dang.
That's a pansexual. That's probably what a pansexual
You mean
is.
pansy sexual? I knew my time was coming this morning. I just knew it.
Yeah, you got it. Speaking of libs, somebody that doesn't like to call, Bill Maher does call himself a liberal. He doesn't like to, I guess, maybe he does admit he's a Democrat, but he gets frustrated with Democrats at least, and I'll give him that. I watched some fascinating clips from a show over the weekend, though, because J.D. Vance was on Bill Maher's show. And I got to say, props to J.D. Vance. Now, J.D. knows that he can handle these individuals, which is why he went on The View. And going on The View, by the way, is not like some sort of challenge because you're going up against 4 or 5 brain dead yentas that don't really even know what they're talking about. It's the aspect of there being multiples there and having to talk over them, right? But he did it. He did it because he's got the confidence and he's got the swagger and he's got the facts on his side, which is also why he went on Bill Maher. Bill Maher has a lot more brain cells than all of the View's cast put together. He at least he understands what he's talking about, even though he may be wrong on a lot of issues. Dare I say the majority of issues. But there were several things, and I won't play all of them, but I do want to play this one point where Bill Maher was bringing up the aspect of voter fraud. And he frames it in a way of, well, the Trump administration or Donald Trump only looks at things as I either win or you cheated. And completely throwing out the window all of the anomalies and all of the evidence that we have about election fraud and just blanketing it with this, oh, you're only saying the Democrats cheated because you lost. Well, that's an easy thing to say if you completely ignore the facts and everything that happened. And so he asked J.D. Vance that question. He's like, if you run for president, are you going to cut this ish out of, if you lose, that means they cheated and blah, blah, blah. And I think J.D. Vance handled it perfectly.
Trump can't run again, and he'd be a little too exciting for me anyway. So it's either going to be you or Rubio. Here's my deal breaker for your side. Okay. Under Trump, you guys have two outcomes that an election can be. Either we win or they cheated. That has to stop. And the person who... And that means the person who has to stop it would be you or Marco. Can you tell me you will do that? Will you bring us back to the middle, at least on that, where we concede elections, where it's not either one of those two options?
Okay, Bill, so this is where I'm probably going to lose you here, but here's...
That happened about 8 minutes ago.
Look, I don't think that we should not concede elections, but I don't think that's what's going on. I think that if you go back to the president's core argument, he was making an argument about problems that existed in 2020. And here's the problem that I'm most focused on. The president and I've talked a lot about this, and I think we share a perspective here, but set to the side the stuff that really gets you and your audience very angry about whether the count was legitimate in Georgia or Pennsylvania or any of these other states. Is it true that large technology companies, some of whom have financial interests that exist outside the United States of America, were they censoring information in the run-up to an election? And set to the side the stuff, again, the Georgia stuff, but
that was litigated. Dominion, the Fox News paid us.
I'm trying to make the more middle ground argument here. The biggest criticism I had of the 2020 election is that you had technology companies that were quite literally censoring negative information about the left and promoting negative information about the right. So in a fundamental sense, like if the First Amendment says that we have a free and open debate and then the American people judge based on that free and open debate, the sense in which I think the election in 2020 was rigged, I'm sorry, is that you had technology companies that were putting their thumb on the scale in a way that completely obliterated the real open exchange of ideas.
Well,
now, by the way, it didn't happen in 2024, but it happened in 2020, and it was a problem.
Well, you're going to get a big pat on the back when you go back to the White House. All right.
I saw some people criticizing J.D. Vance on that front, which he handled perfectly, I feel like. Criticizing J.D. Vance and saying, well, you know, if that's the argument you're going to make about 2020 and rectifying what happened and making sure that it doesn't happen again in the future, then you've thrown everything else out the window, such as, you know, the mail-in ballots and the obvious voter fraud and the counting and the Ruby Freemans and the water main leaks and all of this other shady stuff, the stuff in Colorado with Tina Peters, the stuff in Arizona. All of these things, you're just throwing that out the window. That's the argument you're going to make, that social media companies were censoring information, keeping people from finding out the truth about the candidates and them promoting lies about one particular candidate. That is, one, that's a true argument. But two, I don't think J.D. Vance is saying that's the only fraud that happened. And I don't think that that's the only thing he's going to ride on. I don't think he's just going to leave it at that. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But what he was looking at there, and my pushback on their criticism, is he's on Bill Maher's show, and he pointed this out. He said, outside of the stuff that makes you and your audience angry, because if he did, in fact, go through the voter fraud and the mail-in ballots and the ballot harvesting and everything else that happened, including what Bill Maher thought he was going to bring up, which was Dominion and the voting machines and the fact that those voting machines could be accessed remotely, and the fact that those voting machines were built outside the U.S. and has ties back to Venezuela and other countries, you know, really big issues. He said outside of all of that, he said just the fact that social media companies were toying with the election and the free flow of information to people to be able to judge the candidates appropriately, that in itself is election fraud. It's these big tech companies putting their finger on the scale. And the reason he went that route is because he knew that that would possibly be the only thing that Bill Maher would entertain, or that his audience that might get through the thick heads of the people that watch and are a fan of Bill Maher. And maybe it did. Again, JD's an eloquent guy. He's able to frame things in a way that I think normal people understand. And the points he made aren't in dispute by anybody. It's all public record. It's all being confessed to, including by those very social media companies. It's all out there and documented. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's there. Everybody knows. And so that was the tactic. So the criticism he was getting about, well, you didn't bring up enough about voter fraud. I think he did exactly what he needed to do with the circumstances he was dealing with and the environment he was in. There were several other clips from that JD handled masterfully that I thought was great, but we won't get too far into that. He's just JD's knocking it out of the park right now. I'll say that. He's the man. Noto Roofing bringing you this part of the show and OTORoofing.com. NotoRoofing.com. Get with them. Make sure you let them know I sent you and that you want to get that free roof inspection, complimentary roof tune-up. It's all there for you. All you got to do is grab that bull by the horns, call them up, and set up an appointment. Whatever is convenient for you. Could be this week. Could be next week. Whatever. Could even be 2 weeks from now. Whatever works for you and your schedule. Just know that they're going to inspect it for free. They're going to give you a complimentary roof tune-up, and then they're not even going to pressure you into anything. If you do have problems, they'll say, okay, here's our process. If you want us to do it, let us know. We'll come back out here and do it. We'll help you file the insurance claim. All the things make this as easy as possible for you and your family. So reach out to them at this number, 205-848-2299. It's 205-848-2299 and online, notoroofing.com. See, and I guess my algorithm heard me talking about it. It's throwing it at me now. Andy No, who some of y'all know, he's an investigative journalist. Um, he posted a video out of Seattle yesterday with some adults from the Pride Parade and the Pride Rally, where I was telling you about the naked people in front of the children. After the Pride Parade, they then went down to this little kind of quasi city water park. It's basically just this big kind of orb in the middle of this. It's almost like a splash pad. You know, this thing squirting out water or whatever, and kids are down there, and people are in their bathing suits hanging out. And there's kids all around. And some of the naked people from the Pride Parade are down there at the water park after the parade, dancing around and playing in the water while all these children are present, male and female, and probably transgender people, just completely naked in front of these children. And Seattle allows that to happen. Can you imagine? Like, you do something like that around here, you're going to get your ass beat. It's hard to believe that there's a city in America, in the United States, that allows that kind of sick behavior. It's crazy behavior, dude. I'm also seeing new footage from the earthquakes in Venezuela last week. There were 2 earthquakes, like back to back, and some of this footage is stunning. I've even seen some satellite images showing what certain parts of Venezuela looked like before the earthquake and what it looked like after, and you can tell a big difference where buildings had collapsed and all kinds of stuff.
What was it? Oh, does it say what it was on the Richter scale?
What was it? 7.8, maybe?
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let me see. I'll ask real quick. What size were the earthquakes in Venezuela last week? And it tells me that they were major earthquakes, magnitudes of 7.2 and 7.5.
Man.
So magnitude of 7.2 for the foreshock and 7.5 for the main shock, occurring about 39 to 40 seconds apart. So they had the 7.2 hit, and then like 40 seconds later, they had a 7.5 hit. These were the strongest recorded in the country in over 125 years. They were shallow strike slip events, depths of around 10 to 20 kilometers, centered near San Felipe, west of Caracas, affecting areas like, LaGuardia and Caracas and surrounding regions. That's wild, man. The footage out of Venezuela is absolutely stunning,
man,
to see. I mean, crazy stuff. Because, I mean, you're watching tall buildings just crumble to the ground like a controlled explosion, or a controlled demolition. And you can imagine how many people were in those buildings.
Yes.
Because it's in the middle of the day. You have, people that it's not like dealing with a tornado where it's coming or that it could possibly pop up. Like, these earthquakes just kind of happen out of nowhere. Also, the Colorado Supreme Court. This is not the main Supreme Court, but the Supreme Court out of Colorado has unanimously blocked a Democratic-backed congressional redistricting proposal in Colorado that could have resulted in Democrats gaining 3 additional seats in the U.S. House. So that just got blocked by their own state Supreme Court, which is, I don't know that I've ever seen this much redistricting stuff going on at one time. At least when it comes to redistricting to this level. Like it's been pretty massive as far as what we've seen over the past few weeks, or I guess past couple months. It's been crazy. I do want to mention this before we get into next hour. And this is something that I had on the slate for last week. It's about this Jay Clayton, which had been tapped to be DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, to take the place of Tulsi Gabbard. Now, remember the process that we dealt with here. You had Bill Pulte, which was already working, I think, within the administration in some capacity. I don't remember exactly what he was doing. I don't know if he's working with the FTC or what, but Trump pulled him, no pun intended, pulled Pulte, and put him as a acting DNI, kind of a temporary placeholder, as Tulsi Gabbard made an abrupt exit because of health-related reasons with her husband. And as he has been there, he has received nothing but criticism from both Republicans and Democrats, Republican rhinos in particular. And that right there, first of all, tells me maybe this guy is the guy for the job. They're like, he's got no national security experience and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, but like, could he still be, all right? Well, the pick comes in from Donald Trump, who is going to be the permanent guy, and his name is Jay Clayton. And Jay Clayton is a guy who is, I think he worked for a prominent law firm in New York for a while. Donald Trump has probably known him in the past. And so he said, hey, this will be my pick. And he'll replace Bill Pulte, who is acting Director of National Intelligence, and he'll take a spot. Well, because people were acting so out of their mind with Bill Pulte, Donald Trump says, well, I tell you what, I'm going to pull Jay Clayton, and I'm going to leave Bill Pulte here for a while, and then had Bill Pulte start to fire some of the deep staters that were in the intelligence community. And that just pissed him off even more. But here's what's crazy, and I don't necessarily know the status with Jay Clayton, if he's still on deck for Donald Trump. It seemed to be when Donald Trump announced it that he was just kind of putting it to the side, but may put him in later. He is getting very odd endorsements from odd individuals. And I want to give you a little bit of a backstory on that on the other side.